The Johnson family arrived on a crisp spring afternoon, their moving van rattling down Elmwood Lane like a welcome herald of new beginnings. The neighborhood was picture-perfect manicured lawns stretched like emerald carpets, white picket fences gleamed in the sun, and the scent of freshly baked bread drifted from nearby kitchens. It was the kind of place that promised peace, safety, and community. Just what Michael Johnson wanted for his wife, Lisa, and their 9-year-old son, Ethan. Ethan's wheelchair rolled steadily beside them as they unloaded. It was no ordinary wheelchair, custom-built to navigate rough terrain and equipped with state-of-the-art controls. It was Ethan's ticket to freedom despite his muscular dystrophy. Michael's chest swelled with pride and protective love as he watched Ethan's bright smile spark when he touched the front porch of their new home. But beneath the surface of this suburban idol, shadows lurked. Karen, the HOA self-appointed watchdog, watched from her front porch across the street, lips pursed in disapproval. She was a woman known in the neighborhood for her sharp tongue and even sharper sense of control. Her eyes, cold and calculating, narrowed as she noticed Ethan's wheelchair parked just outside the Johnsons' door. She muttered something under her breath and tightened her grip on her iced tea. Michael caught the glance. "Everything okay?" "Ah," he called across the street with a friendly wave. Karen didn't return the smile. Instead, she raised a perfectly manicured eyebrow and said, "You know the rules. Nothing should be left outside overnight, especially that thing." Michael's smile faltered. "It's Ethan's wheelchair. He needs it." Gaze. "Hardened rules are rules. We all have to follow them." Lisa stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "This isn't just a piece of equipment. It's his mobility." Karen scoffed. "You'll find everyone here expects order. No exceptions." Michael could feel the tension ripple through the air like static before a storm. The neighborhood seemed too quiet, too perfect, like a stage set for something darker. That night, sat in the dim glow of his study, scrolling through emails from the HOA board. A string of polite but pointed reminders about community standards filled his inbox. But Karen's tone was unmistakably sharp. "Make sure the wheelchair isn't left visible. We all want a clean neighborhood." One message read. Michael's fingers hovered over the keyboard, tempted to respond with his title and authority. Instead, he typed carefully, "We will do our best to comply." But as he glanced toward Ethan's room, the silence nodded him. Ethan's window was open, and faint moonlight caught the silhouette of the wheelchair just outside the porch. A sudden creak from the hallway made Michael freeze. He grabbed his flashlight and moved cautiously to the front door. The neighborhood was still bathed in a soft, eerie glow from street lamps. The only sound was the distant hum of a lawnmower from a late-night gardener, or so he hoped, as he stepped onto the porch. His eyes caught a flicker near the community garden across the street. A shadow darted behind a tree, vanishing before he could identify it. Michael's heart quickened. Who's out there this late? He wondered. He pulled out his phone to check the neighborhood watch app, but the security cameras covering the garden were offline. A red error icon blinked ominously. His gut twisted. This wasn't random. The next morning, whispers buzzed through the neighborhood like a swarm of bees. Karen appeared on front porches, delivering her usual reminders, but her eyes flickered with something darker. A subtle menace that unsettled Michael as he watched her from his window. He realized this was no ordinary HOA dispute. This was war. The morning sun spilled over Elmwood Lane, washing the neighborhood in soft golden light, but the warmth did little to thaw the chill settling over the Johnson household. Michael sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of black coffee that had long since gone cold. Lisa's worried eyes met his as Ethan played quietly in his room, oblivious to the storm brewing just outside their door, just yesterday. Karen's cold stare had lingered too long, and the sharp edge of her words still echoed in Michael's mind. Remove the wheelchair or face the consequences. She hadn't just spoken, she had warned. A sudden knock at the door shattered the fragile calm. Michael rose, his instincts already on alert. He opened the door to find Karen standing there, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line. "Morning, Chief," she said, her voice saccharine but dripping with malice. "I thought I'd check in on how you're handling the rules." The wheelchair outside, it's still visible. Michael's jaw tightened. "It's Ethan's wheelchair, Karen. He needs it nearby." Karen smirked, but it was a smirk without humor. Needing it and flaunting it are different things. Some neighbors have complained about the eyesore. Lisa appeared behind Michael, her tone polite but firm. "It's not an eyesore. It's essential." Karen's eyes flicked over Lisa, then landed back on Michael. "You'll find the community expects cooperation. Rules are rules, no exceptions. Keep it out of sight or things will get difficult." Michael felt a cold pulse of warning. "What do you mean by that?" Karen's smile vanished. "Let's just say this neighborhood runs on order. Disorder has consequences." She left without another word, her heels clicking sharply on the porch steps. The Johnsons exchanged uneasy glances. Michael's police training kicked in. This was more than a petty HOA quarrel. Karen's threats carried weight, and something about her tone suggested this was only the beginning. That afternoon, Michael reviewed the neighborhood's security footage from their home cameras. He wanted to catch any suspicious activity around their property. But as he scrolled through the clips, he noticed strange glitches, brief moments when the cameras went dark. Precisely around the times Karen was out on her porch, a message popped up on his phone. Careful where you park that thing, Johnson. This isn't your turf. Michael's skin prickled. Whoever was sending these messages knew exactly how to unsettle a family already vulnerable. The next night brought no relief. Michael heard the faint rustle of movement outside. He peeked through the blinds, spotting a shadow slipping behind the Johnson's garden bushes. The figure paused, then disappeared into the night. Michael grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside, heart pounding. The street was empty except for the usual street lamps flickering in the breeze. But then he noticed something chilling. A small crumpled note pinned to the garden gate with a rusty nail. He unfolded it slowly. Remove the wheelchair, or next time, it won't just be a warning. Lisa gasped from the doorway. This is getting dangerous. Michael. Michael's grip tightened around the note. As police chief, he'd seen threats before. But this felt personal and deeply disturbing. He called Ethan inside and locked the doors, making sure the family was safe. But that night, Michael's thoughts spiraled. Who was behind the threats? Was it Karen acting alone? Or was there a deeper conspiracy at play? Meanwhile, the neighborhood's facade of calm started to crack. Neighbors whispered behind closed doors. Some nodded at Karen's stern rule enforcement. Others exchanged worried glances when Michael passed by. The Johnsons realized they were isolated, stuck in a neighborhood where appearances masked simmering hostility. Michael sat in his study, staring at the wheelchair parked silently on the porch. It was more than just a chair, it was a symbol of his son's independence, and now a target. He made a silent vow, no matter what it took. He would protect Ethan and his family from the shadow closing in, because this wasn't just about a wheelchair. It was about justice. The Johnson household was wrapped in an easy silence when the fire broke out. Michael had just settled into bed, exhaustion tugging at his eyes after a day spent fielding uneasy neighbors and scanning neighborhood watch reports. Lisa was upstairs with Ethan, who had drifted to sleep, exhausted from the day's upheaval. The quiet was shattered by a sudden shrill crack like the sharp snap of wood catching flame. Michael bolted upright, adrenaline surging through his veins. He shouted, leaping out of bed and sprinting toward the front window. Outside, the night was alive with orange flickers licking the darkness. His heart stopped cold. The wheelchair, Ethan's lifeline, was engulfed in flames on the front porch. Without hesitation, Michael threw open the door and dashed out, the acrid sting of smoke burning his nostrils. The neighbors' houses glowed faintly in the moonlight, windows casting worried faces toward the Johnsons' home. Few yards away, the community garden flickered. But something was wrong. The security cameras that should have recorded every second blinked off, their lenses dark and lifeless. Michael grabbed the hose and sprayed water over the fire. But the flames had already eaten deep into the custom chair's frame. It was a loss no money could replace. Why? Lisa whispered, her voice trembling as she clung to Ethan. Now awake and frightened by the chaos, Michael's jaw clenched. This was no accident. Someone had planned this. As the fire died down, Michael's eyes scanned the garden and the street. Beyond, the only movement was the restless sway of tree branches in the breeze. But a shadow flickered near the corner of the garden quick. Deliberate tan vanished behind the thick hedges. His police instincts kicked into overdrive. He pulled out his phone and tried to access the neighborhood security feed again. Stuttered, then flashed a chilling message. No footage available. Michael's blood ran cold. The cameras had been disabled. The following morning, the news spread through the community like wildfire. At the neighborhood coffee shop, hushed voices speculated wildly. Some whispered about an accident, perhaps faulty wiring. Others exchanged glances to knowing to be innocent. Garin, as if rehearsed, emerged on her porch, perfectly composed. She shook her head and declared loudly to anyone who would listen, "Such a terrible tragedy. But these things happen when people don't follow the rules." Hush. Michael's stomach turned. Hush. Karen's words were poison, dripping with blame and disdain. No sympathy. Hush. No remorse. His own neighbors avoided his gaze or offered thinly veiled congratulations. To Karen, as if her cold control was somehow justified. That evening, Call sat alone, staring at the empty space where Ethan's wheelchair once stood. Ethan needed that chair more than anyone. It was his freedom, his independence. Now, it was gone, burned to ashes in the dark of night. Michael's mind raced. Who had the motive, the means, and the callousness to do this? He thought back to Karen's warnings, the anonymous threats, and the suspicious camera outages. Someone wanted to send a message. But why target his son? Michael resolved to uncover the truth. As police chief, he had resources and skills. He just needed to find the missing pieces in this twisted puzzle. The night deepened, and as Michael reviewed every detail again, his phone buzzed with a new message. "You should have listened. This is just the beginning." A cold shiver ran down his spine. The days after the fire were heavy with suspicion and silent accusations. The Johnson family moved through a neighborhood that no longer felt safe, their every step shadowed by whispered rumors and sideways glances. Michael could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching them, judging them, determined to protect his family and find the truth. Michael began a quiet investigation of his own, using every resource at his disposal. He spent hours reviewing the neighborhood's security footage, not just from his home, but from neighboring houses that shared video feeds. But every time he thought he had found something, a flicker of movement. A shadow crossing the screen, it disappeared, leaving only frustrating blanks. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone, was deliberately erasing evidence. One evening, As Michael walked the perimeter of their property, he noticed footprints in the soft dirt near the community garden. They were fresh, small, and oddly precise. If the intruder wanted to leave a trail, maybe wanted to be seen, his pulse quickened. Who could be sending such a message? Was it a warning or a threat? Michael approached Mrs. Diaz, an elderly neighbor known for her late-night gardening. Over a cup of tea in her flower-filled porch, she whispered, "I've seen her, Gren, the HOA queen. She's been pacing near the garden every night, muttering to herself. Have you seen anyone else?" "Oh," Michael asked, lowering his voice. She shook her head. "No, but the other neighbors are scared to talk. Karen's got a grip on this place, and people don't want to cross her." That same night, Michael received an anonymous tip via text. "Look closer. Not everything is as it seems." No signature, no clue who sent it. Fueled by growing paranoia and determination, Michael returned to the security cameras. He took the system offline and brought in a trusted tech expert to do a forensic check. The results were grim. Someone had physically tampered with the cameras, connecting crucial cables in a way only someone familiar with the system could manage. Michael's mind raced. This wasn't a random act of vandalism. Was a calculated move by someone with inside knowledge. As he pieced together the puzzle, Karen's face loomed large in his thoughts. Her cold demeanor, her obsession with control, her suspicious behavior after the fire, it all pointed to her. But was Karen acting alone? That question gnawed at him as he scrolled through messages and reports. Late into the night, a pattern emerged. Karen had fought with previous neighbors in other towns, often escalating conflicts until families moved away. The trail led Michael to an unsettling realization. Karen wasn't just a petty bully. She was a master manipulator with a vendetta against anyone who didn't fit her strict definition of order. Just as Michael thought he was closing in on the truth, Karen delivered another blow at a neighborhood meeting called to discuss community standards. Karen stood before the crowd and accused Michael himself of orchestrating the fire. As a publicity stunt, she painted him as a ruthless man, using his position to manipulate the community. The room buzzed with tension. Some neighbors looked shocked. Others glanced at Michael with uncertainty. Michael held his ground, refusing to be baited. But inside, the doubt was beginning to creep in. Was the community truly divided? Karen poisoned their minds too deeply. That night, Michael stared at the ceiling, haunted by Karen's words. The silent watcher was no longer just a threat outside his door, was a battle for his family's dignity, his son's future, and his own reputation. A new message buzzed on his phone. "The game is just beginning, Chief. Watch your back." Michael clenched his fists. This was no longer a neighborhood dispute. It was a war of shadows, and He was the only one standing between his family and the darkness closing in. The morning fog curled through the quiet streets of Elmwood Lane, masking the simmering tensions beneath the neighborhood's tranquil surface. Michael's mind was restless, replaying Karen's accusations over and over. How could a woman so consumed by control have such a dark, tangled past? Determined to understand his adversary, Michael tapped into his contacts and databases, digging into Karen's history. What he uncovered was chilling. Karen had a reputation that stretched far beyond this sleepy suburb. In town after town, she had been the architect of whispered campaigns against families she deemed undesirable. Complaints to homeowners, associations, public defamation, and even sabotage had trailed her for years. Homes were abandoned, families uprooted all because Karen wielded her power like a weapon. The pattern was unmistakable. Karen wasn't just a bully. She was a predator who thrived on control and fear. Michael's heart clenched when he found records of a similar incident in a neighboring county, an arson targeting a disabled veteran's mobility scooter. Dismissed by the local HOA as unfortunate. The parallels were too close to ignore. This wasn't the first time Karen had crossed lines. Back in Elmwood Lane, Michael prepared to confront Karen with the weight of the evidence. But as he reviewed his notes late at night, a new message flickered on his phone screen. "You're digging too deep. Stop now, or you'll regret it." The threat was clear. The next day, Michael tried to focus on family life, but the atmosphere remained heavy. Ethan sensed the tension and clung to his mother, eyes wide with unspoken questions. Lisa urged Michael to take a step back, but he knew he couldn't. Karen's grip on the neighborhood tightened with every passing hour. At a community gathering, Michael watched her closely. She smiled sweetly, but her eyes were ice. She leaned in to whisper to a neighbor, "I know who he really is, and I'm not afraid to use it." Michael's stomach twisted. How much did she know about his role as police chief? That night, a sudden pounding at the door startled the Johnsons. Michael opened it to find no one there, only a hastily scrawled note pinned to the doorframe. "Careful, Chief, your badge won't protect you here." Michael's grip tightened around the note. The stakes were higher than ever. He realized Karen wasn't just attacking his family. She was trying to dismantle his authority, his identity. But Michael wasn't alone. He reached out quietly to trusted neighbors who had expressed doubt about Karen's reign. A small but determined group formed in the shadows, ready to stand against her. Karen's cold smile would soon meet a force she hadn't anticipated yet. As Michael planned his next move, a nagging fear crept in. Karen's parting words at the last HOA meeting echoed relentlessly. "This neighborhood is mine, and no one takes what's mine." The war for Elmwood Lane was far from over. and the deeper Michael dug, the more he realized that Karen's vendetta was only the surface of a deeper, more dangerous conspiracy. The Johnsons tried to keep their lives steady, but Elmwood Lane was no longer a refuge, it was a battleground. Michael's days were consumed with tracking Karen's moves, while nights were spent ensuring Ethan's safety, the boys' laughter growing quieter, shadowed by fear. The neighborhood's eyes had turned darker. Some neighbors avoided the Johnsons entirely. Others gave curt nods, but whispered behind closed doors. The small coalition Michael had quietly formed was careful, watching Karen's every move, but also wary of exposure. One evening, Michael sat in his dimly lit study, poring over old HOA meeting minutes he'd obtained from a local clerk. What he found shocked him: decades of disputes, mysterious disappearances of residents, and subtle manipulation of neighborhood rules linked somehow to Karen's family lineage. Karen's ancestors had wielded influence over Elmwood Lane since its inception, their roots tangled deep in the community's history and finances. This wasn't just a power struggle. It was legacy, an inherited reign built on fear and control. Michael's phone buzzed, breaking his concentration. Was an anonymous tip again. Look beyond Karen. The real enemy watches and waits. His mind raced. Who else could be involved? And what were they waiting for? The following day, Michael attended a neighborhood fundraiser hosted by Karen herself. An ostentatious event designed to project unity and goodwill. But beneath the smiling faces and polished speeches, Michael detected a razor-sharp edge. Karen made a show of welcoming Michael with a tight-lipped smile. "Glad you could join us, Chief. Everyone here supports order." Michael scanned the crowd. The faces were familiar, but their eyes betrayed any fear or complicity. He couldn't tell. Then he noticed something unsettling. A man standing near the back, watching Michael with an intensity that froze his blood. The man's face was obscured beneath the brim of a hat, but Michael recognized the posturan old adversary from a police case years ago. Someone who had vanished without a trace. Before Michael could react, Karen's voice cut through the murmur. "Order, respect, and rules, that's what keeps Elmwood Lane safe. Not chaos." Her words were a threat, but to whom? That night, as Michael reviewed security footage from the event, he saw the mysterious man again, this time speaking quietly to Karen outside the frame. Michael felt the noose tighten. Suddenly, his phone rang. The caller ID was blocked. "Who is this?" Michael demanded. A cold voice whispered, "You're in over your head, Chief. Stop digging or lose everything." The line went dead. Michael's pulse thundered. The stakes were higher than ever, not just for his family, but for his career and life. Back at home, Lisa comforted Ethan, who asked why people were so mean. Heart broke, but he forced himself to stay strong. "We'll keep you safe, son." That's a promise. But the promise felt fragile. Michael realized Karen was just one thread in a web of secrets and threats woven tightly around Elmwood Lane. To protect his family and the community, he had to unravel the whole conspiracy. But every step forward risked pulling him deeper into darkness. The tension in Elmwood Lane had reached a breaking point. Michael felt the weight of every wary glance and whispered conversation. Every day brought new threats, but also new clues. He knew the truth was within reach if only he could piece it together before it was too late. Late one night, Michael received an encrypted message on his secure police line. "Meet me at the old community hall. Midnight. Come alone." His instincts screamed caution, but he couldn't ignore the chance to uncover the truth. He told Lisa to stay home with Ethan and drove alone through the empty streets, the headlights slicing through the thick night fog. The community hall was an abandoned building, long closed after a mysterious fire decades ago. Michael's heart pounded as he stepped inside, the silence pressing against him like a living thing. From the shadows emerged a figure, Rebecca, a neighbor who had been quiet and distant throughout the ordeal. "I couldn't stand by any longer," Rebecca whispered, her eyes flickering with fear and resolve. "Karen isn't working alone. There's more beneath the surface, people with power, pulling strings. They've been covering up crimes, silencing anyone who gets too close." Michael's mind raced. Rebecca handed him a folder thick with documents, financial records, old property deeds, and coded messages revealing a secret alliance between Karen's family and influential city officials. "This isn't just about the wheelchair or even the fire," Rebecca said. "It's a scheme to control the neighborhood's land and money. They want to force out anyone who doesn't fit their plan, and your family was just the latest target." Michael's blood ran cold. The conspiracy went far deeper than he had imagined. Suddenly, footsteps echoed outside. Rebecca's face paled. "They're coming. You have to go now." Michael sprinted out just as a group of masked figures stormed the hall. He barely escaped into the night, heart pounding, clutching the folder tightly. Back at home, he spread the documents across the dining table. The evidence was undeniable. Karen and her allies had manipulated the HOA to seize properties, pushing out families like the Johnsons under false pretenses. The wheelchair incident was a calculated move to intimidate. Michael knew he had to act quickly. With this proof, he could dismantle Karen's grip on the community and expose the corrupt officials involved. The next day, at a heated HOA meeting, Michael confronted Karen publicly. His voice steady, he laid out the evidence, his words cutting through the tense room. Karen's composure cracked for the first time, her eyes blazing with fury. "You don't understand what you're dealing with, Chief. This neighborhood belongs to us. Always has." Michael locked eyes with her. "Not anymore. This ends now." Suddenly, police officers appeared, led by Michael's trusted deputies. They moved to arrest Karen and several accomplices for conspiracy, intimidation, and arson. The crowd gasped. The facade gasped. The facade of peace shattered as the truth spilled into the open dots. She shot Michael one last venomous glare. "You think you've won. You've only awakened something darker." Michael watched her go, feeling a mixture of relief and foreboding. Home. Lisa embraced Michael as Ethan slept peacefully, unaware of the battle won on his behalf. But deep down, Michael knew the fight for Elmwood Lane was far from over. The dawn over Elmwood Lane felt different, lighter, somehow, but still tinged with uncertainty. The community was shaken, its secrets exposed like open wounds. Karen's arrest rippled through the neighborhood, stirring relief, anger, and fear in equal measure. Michael tried to savor the victory, but unease lingered like a shadow. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. In the days that followed, the Johnson family began rebuilding their lives. Ethan received a new state-of-the-art wheelchair, funded by generous neighbors who had come forward after the truth was revealed. The community garden was restored, now a symbol of resilience rather than control. Michael returned to his police duties, his reputation bolstered by his bravery and determination. Yet, every time he walked Elmwood Lane, he felt the eyes watchful, waiting. One afternoon, as Michael reviewed the case files, an unexpected visitor arrived. A tall man in a crisp suit introduced himself as an investigator from a state oversight committee. "We've been following the Elmwood Lane case closely," the man said. "Your work has uncovered more than you realize. There are concerns that the conspiracy might extend beyond this neighborhood." Michael's pulse quickened. More powerful players. A network even deeper. The investigator slid a sealed envelope across the desk. Inside are documents linking influential figures across multiple counties. Karen's family was just one node in a larger web. Michael glanced at the envelope, his mind racing. The web was larger, darker, and he was right at the center. That night, as Michael sat with Lisa and Ethan, he shared the news. Ethan's innocent eyes widened. "Daddy, are we still safe?" "Oh." Michael smiled, though the weight on his shoulders was heavy. "We will be. I promise we'll keep fighting." But just as he spoke, a faint beep came from his phone, a message from an unknown number. "You've done well, Chief, but this is only the beginning." The room chilled. Michael felt the familiar surge of adrenaline and resolve. He looked at his family, their faces filled with hope and trust, and vowed silently, no matter what shadows lurked ahead, he would protect them and their community as he prepared for the next chapter. Michael understood one truth in the fight against darkness. The light of justice burns brightest when fueled by courage, love, and unwavering determination. And with that, Elmwood Lane's story was far from over.